Okay, Lori Beth Denberg remembers Dan Schneider calling her into his office and telling her to shut the door. Never good. It was 1995, around Denberg's 19th birthday, and Nickelodeon's hit comedy show All That had recently wrapped its first season. Denberg was one of the show's stars, so when Schneider, the head writer of All That, heard that a female producer had met with Denberg to discuss her weight gain, he was angry. Schneider told Denberg that he should have been the one to have that conversation. After all, he understood what it was like to be overweight. At first, Denberg appreciated the support, but the conversation shifted. And before Denberg realized it, Schneider started showing her clips of corn on his computer. So this has also been kind of a pattern, allegedly, in the media when it comes to Dan Schneider, is this pornography that he would show. One of the allegations was to his writer staff, and now Lori is saying that she experienced it herself. Let's continue. Schneider started showing her clips of blank on his computer. The grand finale, Denberg said, was a video in which a woman performed OS on a donkey. I'm sorry, what? I mean, that is just not what I was expecting. Not that I was expecting, I'm always shocked, to be honest with you. But that is horrible. Wow. I feel like that is the first time he preyed on me, Denberg told Business Insider. During her 4 seasons starring in All That between 1994 and 1998, Denberg said Schneider put her in countless uncomfortable situations. She said he lashed out at her on set, played, again, corn for her on multiple occasions, and once initiated phone sex. Denberg said that looking back, she's disturbed by the power imbalance between herself and Schneider, who was a decade older than Denberg and one of the most powerful people working on All That. Schneider built a children's television empire. We know, yada, 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 yada. We watch quiet on set. In a statement to Business Insider, Schneider, now 58, said Denberg's accusations are wildly exaggerated. But exaggerated, that's not saying it's wildly false or wildly untrue. Wildly exaggerated. So what was the donkey doing? Was it just a donkey video? How is the donkey video exaggerated? And who's telling you to make that statement? John? Probably not the best way of disproving what Lori's accusations are. Wildly exaggerated and in most cases false. Which part, Dan? Why don't you go into detail? I hate that. Why don't you go into detail about what parts were false? As I have previously stated, there were times, particularly in the early years of my career, that I made mistakes and exhibited poor judgment as a leader. You're not a leader, Dan. You never got to that point. You're a boss. Different. Schneider said, if I did that with respect to Lori Beth, I sincerely apologize to her. Your apologies are the worst at this point. Wildly exaggerated. I apologize to her through the press. But now I know why your lawyer called me in 2019. You have a lot of skeletons in your closet, it seems, allegedly. Or people have things to say about you that aren't necessarily in your favor. This is the first time Denberg has publicly discussed Schneider at length, but it's not the first time she's voiced her concerns. Around 2000, Denberg said she told Albie Hecht, that guy, the president of film and TV at Nickelodeon, and Brian Robbins. So by the way, let's go full screen for a second, because by the way, Brian Robbins, you suck. Honestly, not hearing the best about you per se. So we heard, or we know, that Drake Bell's dad, remember in the documentary when he talked about, going to Nickelodeon, about the behavior that Brian Peck was, yada, yada, yada. That was to Brian Robbins, who is now the president of Nickelodeon. And so, it's so interesting to see how this all works because, Dan's no longer there, but Brian Robbins is now the president. And I would say all of the reboots when it comes to Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon in general is Dan Schneider's material, his content. And Brian Robbins is who brought Dan Schneider into the Nickelodeon realm, from my knowledge. And on top of that, was around during the beginning of Dan Schneider's upcoming into, I guess, being a leader. I love that he calls himself a leader. A boss and a leader are two very different things. You can be a boss and not be a leader, and you can be a leader and not be a boss. So those are two different things. Brian Robbins. Okay, so the co-creator of all that she was worried about how Schneider treated the actor Amanda Bynes. The young star appeared emaciated and exhausted on the set of The Amanda Show, which Schneider created and produced. According to Denberg and another person who worked at Nickelodeon, after she spoke with the executives, Denmark was barred from the set of The Amanda Show. Schneider was ultimately ousted from Nickelodeon in 2018 after an internal investigation found he would be verbally abusive, but Denberg said that Nickelodeon executives' failure to act more quickly forced actors and crew members to endure years of abuse and mistreatment at Schneider's hands. Nobody thinks it is their responsibility to protect the people working at Nickelodeon, Denberg said. Instead, higher-ups acts as if employees should thank them for the privilege, and it's just absolutely disgusting. Lori, I completely agree with you, and that is across the board when it comes to Hollywood and the entertainment industry. It is exactly that. No one wants it to be their responsibility, and I would actually go a step further to say that some of them that should be a part of this are also predatory as well. Denberg was a 17-year-old high school senior when she was cast in All That in 1994. She was ecstatic to book her first professional acting gig. Denberg moved to Orlando alone to film the first season. Off camera, she socialized with the crew and writers, including Schneider. Denberg felt more mature than her young co-stars and thought Schneider was someone she could learn from, maybe even serve as a mentor. Oy. Denberg said her relationship with Schneider turned sexual when she was around only 19. She was 19 years old. Here she is. Oh, there she is. Wait, there he is, though. Oh my God, and Amanda. Wow, it's kind of a trip to think about how many years have passed. Okay.
Power to survivors!
Yeah.
Power to survivors!
Agreed. It started with frequent phone calls. Denberg said that they would regularly discuss S topics, and once Schneider initiated phone sex. When All That filming moved from Orlando to Los Angeles in 1996, Denberg said she began spending late nights at Schneider's home, sometimes sleeping over. Wow. While they were not blank intimate during these sleepovers, Denberg said they would give each other massages. Wow, it's so weird, Dan. Why is there always so many people mentioning massages? And I saw that. I saw it all the time, honestly. What's with that? I'm sorry. It upsets me because you're like, dude, now someone else is talking about massages. This is not good.
Ugh.
What, is she going to be deposed? I mean, she probably would be deposed probably during your defamation suit. Who's going to depose for you in this defamation suit? What is this lawsuit, honestly? It's just a question. Don't get upset. while they were not blah, 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 massages, and that Schneider frequently played corn on his computer. Farah Elvin, a high school friend of Denberg's, told BI that Denberg told her about the phone blank and blank, as well as Schneider's request for massages at the time. Okay, so here's cooperation. Once Denberg said Schneider asked her to accompany him to visit his auto repairman. What a very specific detail. And this is something I would also like to talk about for a quick second. So when alleged predators defend themselves, so when alleged predators, have their side of the story, so to speak, and talk about it, it's always very narrow, in my opinion, about how they describe it, which I'm sure their lawyers tell them not to say too much, yada, yada, yada. But nonetheless, it's very narrow. And usually when a person comes forward about their experience, it is very much in detail, like weird details, like things you would just never think of. It's not like a simple, oh, I met him at this party. Sometimes it is. I'm not saying it isn't. But a lot of the time it's very specific. And so to hear her saying here, his auto repairman, you're like, well, where is that coming from? That seems like a very specific detail to her experience. Okay, so according to Denberg, Schneider had a GUN on him. Wait, can we show my screen? Wait, what the fuck? And then here we go with the GUN thing with the writer. Wasn't that Jack Salvador? Sorry, am I saying his last name right? Yeah, Salvatore. Okay. He said about the GUN with Dan Schneider. And then here we go again. He had a GUN on him. When a police officer pulled over Schneider because of an issue with his car's tags, Schneider pushed his GUN to Denberg, she said. She hid the GUN under her skirt as Schneider chatted with the officer, what? Who recognized him from his role on the sitcom Head of the Class. Schneider, she said, then asked the officer if he had any children who watched Nickelodeon and might recognize. What? As my Adobe comes up for me to pay my bill. Wait, what are you talking about? Has anyone else known about this? This is pretty wild. It's hot in here, but now it got hotter in here thinking about this horrific experience. This is very in detail and very bad. Denberg said her relationship with Schneider developed into a weird ABUSIVE friendship. One night when Denberg was around 20 or 21, she said things became physical. Denberg said they were watching Jeopardy! At Schneider's home and made a bet on who could get the most answers correct. The winner would get a massage. But when Denberg won, she said Schneider also fondled and put his mouth on her chest area. I can't say that on YouTube. So again, trigger warning. This is nuts. I'm sorry. Okay, at the time, Denberg did not necessarily see these interactions as inappropriate, telling herself she was older than 18. It's only in recent years that she started grappling with the power imbalance in these S encounters. She felt that if she refused Schneider, there was a possibility he would stop writing sketches for her or humiliate her on set. Makes complete sense. He did humiliate people on set. I experienced it. I couldn't have been more green, Denberg said. I couldn't have been more vulnerable. Denberg said Schneider's outbursts became a problem on and off set. Once at dinner with writers and crew members, Denberg recalled Schneider's asking the group unprompted whether they ever noticed that Denberg's chest area were different sizes. Denberg, who was 18 or 19 at the time, said she responded by throwing a bread roll at Schneider, hoping to diffuse the situation. Wow, this is disgusting. She said he screamed at her, yelling that his right eye was hanging on by a thread. before storming out of the restaurants. Okay. He's sensitive too. It was one of those, we know, we got it with the lawsuit against Quiet on Set. Super sensitive. What is now hanging by a thread, Dan? Just curious. It was one of those turns that was just really upsetting and scary, she said. Everyone else seemed to completely blow it off. As all that progressed, Denberg said Schneider lashed out more frequently on set. If Denberg pushed back against Schneider, she said it became more and more of, I'm going to make your life miserable. I'm going to treat you as badly as I can. Schneider's digs could be subtle. Someone who worked on all that told BI that Schneider could be vindictive toward Denberg, sometimes adjusting scripts to humiliate her. Cute. This person and 3 others who worked with Schneider requested anonymity in order to speak freely without fear of professional repercussions. Their identities are known to BI. Once when Robbins wasn't on set, Schneider made Denberg wait more than an hour on the chilly soundstage, freezing and soaking wet, to film a sketch as Sweaty Woman. Denberg starred in another recurring segment called Vital Information. According to Denberg, Schneider would refuse to write her jokes for the segment until the last minute, forcing her to perform live without rehearsing. Denberg said it felt like a power play to purposefully upset her. I mean, this all seems like a pattern of what I remember Dan Schneider as, so whatever. Other times, Schneider exploded. Denberg said working with Schneider carried the threat that this big man might turn around to yell at you and attack you out of nowhere. Once Schneider wanted Denberg to adjust how she'd sung a song in a scene when she told him to talk to Robbins, the episode's director. She said Schneider snapped and said he would tell her anything I want. Aren't we all now just saying anything we want now? Angelique Bates, who starred in the first 2 seasons of All That, starting when she was 13, told BI in 2022 that Schneider once screamed at her after a sketch went off the rails. Bates said that the incident was so intense that she ran away in tears. This is a pattern of Dan Schneider. I'm done actually reading this, almost, because I've seen it for myself. Meanie. Total meanie. And even though I never experienced anything physically whatsoever with Dan Schneider, this type of behavior that he is being accused of is deeply concerning. The people that you hurt in one way or another, allegedly, me, these are the voices that are important right now, not yours. The only time your voice, in my opinion, is important is when you're genuinely saying sorry directly to the people that you hurt. Then your voice is a little more important. Not the most, but a little bit, at least. I'm grossed out by you. I had my own experience with you, and then now I'm reading about other people's alleged experience with you, and the entire thing is just concerning, to say the least. What a legacy, regardless of what your lawsuit is. What a legacy. Okay, so Dan is suing Quiet on Set. Dan had a very strong, powerful individual by the name of Lori Denberg come forward about her alleged experience with Dan Schneider. And I do want to say to Lori that I support you. And think he's kind of weird to say that, but I support you coming forward. And thank you for setting an example for the next generation, also this generation, but even more so the next generation, on how to speak truth to power, regardless of the person who did that to you.